Today is Saturday, July 26th, 2025. It is 6:50 in the morning. Yep, it's gonna have to be early in the morning for the rest of the summer for getting in here and doing recording, because it gets really, really hot in here. But that's old news. Anyway, good morning. So I am hoping to record and submit some auditions on Casting Call Club. And so far I've only been auditioning for paid gigs, and I have been shortlisted twice, but I'm a member of a few voiceover discords, and some very fine people over on those discords have all been having success. They're getting casted, they're auditioning, casting, I assume on Casting Call Club. I know a couple of them, definitely it's been on Casting Call Club. But they've been auditioning and getting cast. And, oh, what is happening? Stop. An alarm is going off. Yeah, they've been getting cast for roles, and I haven't. You know, I'm so new at this, and voiceover work is absolutely a marathon. And intellectually, I totally understand that. But, you know, and a lot of the time emotionally, I'm fine with that too. But there are these moments, right, where people around you are booking gigs and you're not, and you're like, what's wrong with me? Not really what's wrong with me, but a little bit what's wrong with me. I just need to keep developing my performance skills and my mic technique and all of that. It'll happen. If I stick with it, it'll happen, right? But they seem to be auditioning for unpaid roles. And a conversation started up on the Discord last night about criteria required to join NAVA, which is the National Association of Voice Actors. And what came to light in that conversation is that you need 3 to 5 professional gigs, but they don't have to be paid gigs. I mean, so I have a writing background. I write short fiction, and in the short fiction publication world, a magazine is not considered a professional magazine unless it pays a certain rate. So that's what I'm used to as criteria, is it pays, and it pays a certain rate. But I guess in the world of voiceover, it's different. And as long as it's not like a fan project, if it's original work and you voice it, even if it's unpaid, you count it as a professional credit. So now I'm just sort of rethinking my approach to Casting Call Club. I don't know if I will start auditioning for unpaid gigs or not. It certainly would increase the number of roles available, but one of the other things that I picked up from the world of short fiction is like, go big. Try for the big markets. Don't self-reject is what it's called. Don't self-reject. So submit to the renowned markets first, and then, you know, if your story isn't accepted there, then just go down the ladder. And I figured that, you know, could that approach hurt here in voiceover, the world of voiceover? I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to try and submit record and submit a few auditions on Casting Call Club. Again, I gotta remind myself, the point is the practice. The point is the practice, not booking the gig. Not right now. I'm less than a year into this. By going through the audition process and trying my best, I will improve. I have to remember that. The point is the practice. I can't get discouraged. It's so easy to get discouraged. Anyway, yeah, so that's where my brain is at this morning. I decided not to subject all you fine folks to another vocal warm-up session, but do know that I did go through my warm-ups. So I did all of the stuff this morning before I started recording that I did in my last video that I posted. I spent yesterday making sure that I hydrate. I have this lovely water bottle that is 32 ounces, and I realized if I fill that up and drink it 4 times, I will have drunk a gallon of water. That seems like a lot. That's hydrated enough, right? I hope so. So, I tried to really super hydrate yesterday to help my vocal folds. They do feel better this morning, but I think one day of hydration doesn't quite get you there. I have heard from a few different sources that your vocal cords hydrate slowly compared to some other parts of your body. So who knows? But what I am going to do right now is get back to my cold reading part of this project, this 30-day project. This is day 6. Sorry, I didn't say that before. Welcome to day 6 of the 30-day project. And we are into chapter 3 of The Secret Garden. So let me pull up Reaper. I am still working on trying to maintain even audio levels. Modulating my volume seems to be pretty challenging for me. Hold on, there are a few plugins that are running at the moment, and I don't want them to be. They're teeny tiny. My new glasses came yesterday. I was so excited because my prescription has changed, and I was like, yay, I'm going to be able to see. And I decided that I would order transition lenses. Those are the ones that darken. They're clear, but they darken in the sun. Well, guess what? To be able to have those transition lenses, there's something embedded into the polycarbonate lens that creates this weird greenish blue tinge reflected through, and it casts over my face. It's just like so weird and horrible looking. So I'm going to have to send them back, and I'm going to have to reorder them without that transition, that sunglasses transition. Disappointment. I get them through an online provider, and so it takes like 10 days from the time I order to 10 days to 2 weeks. So I'll have to wait longer to be able to see better. Sadness. All right, anyway, let's start Reaper recording. Yeah, how are my levels? How are my levels? I'm going to try and get up nice and close. I'm going to try and speak a little softer. Whoop. Another alarm is going off? Stop. A million alarms. All right. So I'm recording now. I turned the gain up just a little bit. I feel like that's dangerous, though. All right, anyway. Let's see. What happened? Oh, she was on the train. And the woman who picked her up was like, "You're going to a weird place and there isn't going to be anybody around and there'll be lots of locked rooms, and don't bother anybody and to go into rooms you're not supposed to go into," I think was the gist of it. All right. Hold on. You know what I'm going to do? I have a stand for this iPad. And I think one of my problems is that I kind of, not fatigue, that's not quite the right explanation for it. It's hard to hold it consistently. So I'm going to set this up for myself. Move some stuff around. Sorry. All right. Maybe not having to hold on to the iPad will help me stay in front of the mic and get more even levels is what I'm trying for. And actually, more adjustments. I promised that this was going to be an unfiltered view of my journey. It is. All right, putting that on the floor. I'm going to put this right here. Okay, how are my levels? I think it's sort of going between 18 and 24, but it's a little low. Let's turn it up ever so slightly. Nothing's happening. Why is nothing happening? Why? There we go. Wow, I turned that up a lot, though. That makes me nervous. Da-da-da-da-da. All right. All right. Let's do this. Chapter 3. Across the Moor. She slept a long time, and when she awakened, Mrs. Medlock had bought a lunch basket at one of the stations, and they had some chicken and cold beef and bread and butter and some hot tea. The rain seemed to be streaming down more heavily than ever, and everybody in the station wore wet. The rain seemed to be streaming down more heavily than ever, and everybody in the station wore wet and glistening waterproofs. The guard lighted the lamps in the carriage, and Mrs. Medlock cheered up very much over her tea and chicken and beef. She ate a great deal, and afterward fell asleep herself, and Mary sat and stared at her and watched her fine bonnet slip on. She ate a great deal, and afterward fell asleep herself, and Mary sat and stared at her and watched her fine bonnet slip on one side until she herself fell asleep once more in the corner of the carriage, lulled by the splashing of the rain against the windows. It was quite dark when she awakened again. The train had stopped at a station, and Mrs. Medlock was shaking her. "You have had a sleep," she said. "It's time to open your eyes. We're at the Thwaite station, and we've got a long drive before us." Mary stood up and tried to keep her eyes open while Mrs. Medlock collected her parcels. The little girl did not offer to help her because an idiot. The little girl did not offer. The little girl did not often. Oh my goodness. The little girl did not offer to help her because in India native servants always picked up or carried things, and it seemed quite proper that other people should wait on one. The station was a small one, and nobody but themselves seemed to be getting out of the train. The station master spoke to Mrs. Medlock in a rough, good-natured way, pronouncing his words in a queer, broad fashion which Mary found out afterwards was Yorkshire. "I see thou's got back," he said, "and thou's brought the young un with thee." It's written so strangely on the page. Oh my goodness. "Aye, that's her," answered Mrs. Medlock, speaking with a Yorkshire accent herself, and jerking her head over her shoulder toward Mary. "How's the missus?" "Well enow. The carriage is waiting for you outside for thee." "The carriage is waiting outside for thee?" A brougham, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. A brougham stood on the road before the little outside platform. Mary saw that it was a small carriage, and that it was a smart footman who helped her in. His long waterproof coat and the waterproof covering of his hat were shining and dripping with rain, as everything was, the burly station master included. When he shut the door, mounted the box with the coachman, and they drove off, the little girl found herself seated in a comfortably cushioned corner, but she was not inclined to go to sleep again. She sat and looked out the window, curious to see something of the road over which she was being driven to the queer place Mrs. Medlock had spoken of. She was not at all a timid child, and she was not exactly frightened, but she felt that there was no knowing what might happen in a house with 100 rooms nearly all shut up, a house standing on the edge of a moor. "What is a moor?" she asked suddenly. "What is a moor?" she said suddenly to Mrs. Medlock. "Look out of the window in about 10 minutes and you'll see," the woman answered. "We've got to drive 5 miles across Missel Moor before we get to the manor. You won't see much because it's a dark night, but you can see something." Mary asked no more questions, but waited in the darkness of her corner, keeping her eyes on the window. The carriage lamps cast rays of light a little distance ahead of them, and she caught glimpses of the things they passed. After they had left the station, they had driven through a tiny village, and she had seen whitewashed cottages and the lights of a public house. Then they had passed a church and a vicarage and a little shop window or so. Then they had passed a church and a vicarage and a little shop window or so, and a cottage with toys and sweets and odd things set out for sale. Then they were on the high road, and she saw hedges and trees. After that, there seemed nothing different for a long time, or at least it seemed a long time to her. At last the horses began to go more slowly, as if they were climbing uphill, and presently there seemed to be no more hedges and no more trees. She could see nothing, in fact, but a dense darkness on either side. She leaned forward and pressed her face against the window just as the carriage gave a big jolt. We're on the moor now, sure enough," said Mrs. Medlock. The carriage lamps shed a yellow light on a rough-looking road, which seemed to be cut through bushes and low-growing things, which ended in the great expanse of dark, apparently spread out before and all around them. A wind was rising, and making a singular, wild, low, rushing sound. It's not the sea, is it?" said Mary, looking round at her companion. "No, not it." Excuse me, water. "No, not it," answered Mrs. Medlock. Nor it isn't?" The sentence structure really messes me up. These cold reads, I'm so sorry, these cold reads are so interrupted. "Nor it isn't fields nor mountains. It's just miles and miles and miles of wild land that nothing grows on but heather and gorse and broom, and nothing lives on but wild ponies and sheep." "I feel as if it might be the sea, if there were water on it," said Mary. "It sounds like the sea just now." "That's the wind blowing through the bushes," Mrs. Medlock said. "It's a wild, dreary enough place to my mind, though there's plenty that likes it, particularly when the heather's in bloom." On they drove through the darkness, and though the rain stopped, the wind rushed by and whistled and made strange sounds. The road went up and down, and several times the carriage passed over a little bridge beneath which water rushed very fast with a great deal of noise. Mary felt as if the drive would never come to an end, and that the wide, bleak moor was a wide expanse of black ocean through which she was passing on a strip of dry land. "I don't like it," she said to herself. "I don't like it," and she pinched her thin lips more tightly together. The horses were climbing up a hilly piece of road when she first caught sight of a light. Mrs. Medlock saw it as soon as she did and drew a long sigh of relief. "I'm glad to see that bit of light twinkling," she exclaimed. "It's the light in the lodge window." Oh, let me try that again. "I'm glad to see that bit of light twinkling," she exclaimed. "It's the light in the lodge window. We shall get a cup of tea after a bit, at all events." It was after a bit, as she said, for when the carriage passed through the park gates, there was still 2 miles of avenue to drive through the trees, which nearly met overhead, made it seem as Oh, sorry. It was after a bit, as she said, for when the carriage passed through the park gates, there was still 2 miles of avenue to drive through, and the trees, which nearly met overhead, made it seem as if they were driving through a long, dark vault. They drove out of the vault into a clear space and stopped before an immensely long but low-built house which seemed to ramble round a stone court. At first Mary thought there was no lights at all in the windows. But as she got out of the carriage, she saw that one room in a corner upstairs showed a dull glow. The entrance door was a huge one, made of massive, curiously shaped panels of oak, studded with big iron nails and bound with great iron bars. It opened into an enormous hall, which was so dimly lit that the faces in the portraits on the walls and the figures in the suits of armor made Mary feel that she did not want to look at them. As she stood on the stone floor, she looked a very small, odd little black figure, and she felt as small and lost and odd as she looked. A neat, thin old man stood near the manservant who opened the door for them. "You are to take her to her room," he said in a husky voice. Okay. "You're to take her to her room," he said in a husky voice. "He doesn't want to see her. He's going to London in the morning." "Very well, Mr. Pitcher," Mrs. Medlock answered. "So long as I know what's expected of me, I can manage." "What's expected of you, Mrs. Medlock," Mr. Pitcher said, "is that you make sure that he is not disturbed and that he doesn't see what he doesn't want to see." And then Mary Lennox was led up a broad staircase and down a long corridor and up a short flight of steps and through another corridor and another until a door opened in a wall and she found herself in a room with a fire in it and a supper on a table. Mrs. Medlock said unceremoniously, "Well, here you are. This room and the next are where you'll live, and you must keep to them. Don't forget that." It was in this way Mistress Mary arrived at Misselthwaite. Manor, and she had perhaps never felt quite so contrary in all her life. And I'm just stopping the recording on Reaper. Stop. There we go. That was quick. I was like, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes of reading. I could keep going. How long is the next chapter? Longer. It's much longer. Okay, we'll save the next chapter for my next journal entry. That just gives me more time to work on my additions. All right, how did chapter 3 sound? I'm really trying to, I don't know, sound less wooden and stiff when I read, which is like my natural state of existence, I've been told. Not in those exact words, but. And I will put this on the floor. All right, if you're still here, thank you. I hope you are enjoying the reading process and watching my process. As always, if you have questions or thoughts, you want to give me feedback on my mic technique, volume levels, my narrative performance, feel free to do so in the comments. Yeah, although no one has, but I am kind of keeping this YouTube channel a little bit incognito. So, yeah, all right, that's it for today. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.